All right. What is next for Bitcoin's price? This is a question that Forbes contributor poses to the Forbes readers. This is a question I'm posing to you. Where do you see Bitcoin's price being in December? Let me know. I'll be responding below. And I'm sure I don't need to remind you that Bitcoin's price has actually been decreasing this whole year. Obviously, we were overbought at a certain point, and we've been correcting and correcting and correcting. And within the last week, we've seen almost like this waterfall effect where we have dropped significantly in price. So the question is, are we heading down to possibly $2,000 as the Forbes contributor put it? Or maybe at this point we're oversold, right? Maybe we're going to head back up. I want to know what you think. And I'm going to share with you this article I thought was really interesting. This Forbes contributor, he applies basic economic concepts onto Bitcoin to try and determine Bitcoin's actual fair value. What is Bitcoin's intrinsic value? So that's what we're getting into today. I think you're going to want to find out about Bitcoin's actual value. And by the way, welcome back everybody to Altcoin Daily. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Aaron. Here at Altcoin Daily, we do daily videos keeping you informed on everything going on in the cryptocurrency space. Welcome. Subscribe to the channel, join the team. If you're old here, if you're day one, feel free to like the video. That's a small thing you can do that does help us grow as a channel. And let's get into it. So when we're talking about price, how is the price of anything determined? It's all about supply versus demand, right? What are people actually willing to pay, and what value does what you're paying for actually have? And when we're talking about money, it's just like, the only reason that our government issued money, the only reason our dollar is worth anything is because people put their trust in it and they believe in it. And so when we're trying to figure out, or what we're trying to figure out is, as he puts it, the intrinsic value or fair market value of one Bitcoin. And that's hard to say, right? I don't know about you, but sometimes I just hang out on Binance or any of the exchanges, and you can just watch the buy orders go through and the sell orders go through. And I've been seeing plenty of people buying Bitcoin. As we had this sharp drop, a lot of buy orders going through. And there's been sell orders going through as well. And obviously it's nothing compared to the huge market manipulating sell-off that we saw within the past week. And just to recap, since the beginning of the year, Bitcoin had been holding this $6,000 floor. Strong support. We touched it multiple times throughout the whole year. And then about a week ago, we broke through it, passed right through it, got to the $5,500 support, passed right through it, blew straight through the 4,800 support. And right now, we are barely holding around the 4,200 level support. And as you know, all in all, Bitcoin is down close to 30% in just the last 7 days alone, and close to 80% over the last 12-month period. So what I like about this article is it doesn't get too complicated, but it applies a few economic concepts on Bitcoin to try and determine what's the current intrinsic value of one Bitcoin. What should you actually pay for it? And we know, right, that the market is young and volatile, so it's kind of hard to find an actual fair value because Bitcoin's always changing. And we're not even talking about at what price point do miners break even. What is the price point that miners break even? It's around it's different depending on if you have a large mining firm versus a small mining operation, but it's around $6,000 to $7,000, right, when miners break even. But that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is actual economic concepts that usually are applied to traditional markets, now applied to Bitcoin. So the first one, it's called the Wheatley model. And the Wheatley model, it estimates the intrinsic value of Bitcoin by looking at the demand side of the price equation. And if you put it through the Wheatley model, it places Bitcoin's value actually well below its current price at around $1,200. On the other hand, if you apply the Hayes model, which estimates Bitcoin intrinsic value by looking at the supply side of the price equation, only 21 million Bitcoins will ever be created. It places Bitcoin's value at around $10,100, which is a significantly higher price point, right? And then there's what's called the market model, which looks at a multitude of different things, but it actually takes into account both demand and supply. And you'd think that the value that would be the outcome would be somewhere between $1,000 and $10,000, but actually it places Bitcoin's value very close to the previous Hayes model, actually a little bit above it, at an estimated $10,800, which is surprising. And so the three intrinsic valuations provide interesting insight, according to Greg Giordano, who ran these simulations of the three models after the recent Bitcoin decline. And he says, first off, this is one of the first times that the market model has ever risen above the Hayes model. And the reason for this could be that mining revenue has fallen, yes. However, the transactions per block and unique wallet addresses have actually increased, all while mining difficulty has stayed steady for the time being. So it's very interesting to see more users actually creating accounts for Bitcoin in such a bearish environment, and along with this, the amount of resources being put towards mining has not dropped at all. So we don't know which one of these models will eventually turn out right. It's probably obviously a safe bet is somewhere in between $1,000 and $10,000 at the current day. But what's interesting is what he said. According to the data, there's actually more unique Bitcoin wallets that are being created in this bear market and more unique transactions occurring, which to me, that speaks to just the vast network that Bitcoin has and how that vast network is still increasing to this day. So I don't know what's going to happen in Bitcoin's immediate future. I don't know if this is going to be a 2-year bear market or not. One thing I do know is that given enough time, just like we look back on all the other years, we're going to look back on all of this fondly, in my opinion. And what I'm actually looking forward to, I don't know if the price is going to go up as we near the end of the year. I don't know what's going to happen in 2019. But one thing I am looking forward to is this: Bitcoin's next halving. And if you know about the halving, what do you think? Where do you think the state of cryptocurrency and the state of Bitcoin will be come May 2020 when Bitcoin halves again? What do you think Bitcoin's price is going to be at that point? That's what I'm interested in. And so if you don't know, the halving, the 50% reduction in block rewards on the Bitcoin blockchain, it's only 2 years away. And when this occurs, the reward for a successful Bitcoin miner will drop from what is now 12.5 Bitcoins. It'll cut in half to 6.25 Bitcoins, and this is going to happen in May 2020. And I'm looking forward to this, obviously, because this is going to create demand. This is going to cause what I believe will be a price increase. And now what Bitcoin halving doesn't mean is that as soon as Bitcoin halves, we're not going to see some immediate bull run, some immediate spike up. Actually, what's more likely to happen, and what usually happens, since we do know the exact dates of these events, is months before this happens, what we're probably going to see is Bitcoin's price start increasingly trending upwards as people anticipate this coming halving. And when this actually happens, probably not when the day that Bitcoin halves, probably a disappointment, probably relatively steady, because the halving is not a magic cure-all for a bull run. This is a process. It takes time. And actually, let's look back on a little bit of history, because it's usually around a year after the halving occurs that FOMO sets in and we do see a huge price spike. So there's been 2 Bitcoin halvings in all of Bitcoin's history, once in 2012 and once in 2016. And halving occurs every 4 years, or about every 4 years, after 210,000 blocks have been mined. And after both of these halving events, there has been significant bull runs about a year later. And whether this price rally occurred as a consequence of the halvings, that remains to be seen, although it is very coincidental. So we can see here that a year after the 2012 halving, Bitcoin's price rose to a record $1,000 that next November. And at the time, this was the highest ever recorded price for Bitcoin. And then at the next halving, actually a year after the 2016 halving, Bitcoin reached another record milestone, we know it, when Bitcoin rallied up to almost $20,000. All right, so this makes a lot of sense, right? You know, large buyers of Bitcoin, they don't have too many places to buy Bitcoin, these whales. They can either buy it on the markets, which they usually don't, or they can buy it over the counter. And usually over the counter, they get a lot of their supply directly through the miners. And after the halving event, you know, these miners, they're going to have less Bitcoin, and this might force people to buy on the market. And even if that's not the case, you know, overall, this just reminds people how limited and scarce Bitcoin is, so demand goes up. So again, what do you think is going to happen in 2020? You know, I'm looking forward to it. I see it's going to be a good year for Bitcoin, especially, you know, John McAfee. He's going to be running for president, and as he said, you know, he's a bit of a provocateur, and as he said, he doesn't expect to win. He just expects to promote cryptocurrency, and, you know, he doesn't want to eat his own manhood, as he promised to do if Bitcoin doesn't get to a certain price. Anyways, that's it for me today. I hope I provided you with value, like always. If you did find value, hit the like button. Small thing you can do helps us grow as a channel. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe. And if you want to stick around, I just wanted to show you this real quick. I don't know if you got to see this. Google Trends Bitcoin interest hits a 6-month high. So the proportion of searches for Bitcoin is higher now than during any weekly period since April 8th. And at that time, the last time we had an uptick like this, the Bitcoin price, it was right before a major surge when Bitcoin surged from $7,000 to $10,000. And as you know, back in last year, Bitcoin in November, December, January, Bitcoin had that huge uptick according to Google Trends. So you can actually see the uptick right here, and even compared to people searching blockchain has not really changed, but people searching Bitcoin has really increased. So take that for what you will. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. Like I said, that's it for me, my friends. This is Aaron signing out. I will see you tomorrow.